Hello, I'm Anita Pebbles. Welcome back to another passion project. I'm here again with Emily Quandt, co-founder and facilitator of Free to Learn, an agile learning community where the kids are 100% self-directed in their living and their learning. Hi, Emily. Welcome. So today we're just going to jump right in. Okay?
All right, I'm ready.
Let's do it. Okay. So, Emily, in the self-directed community, are there certain traditional subject areas that are a priority?
Ooh, good question. So we answer this question all day long. Everybody wants to know this, everybody has to learn the right thing. There's more important things than other things. I'll just read off our pat answer, because it's ethereal and smart and big words and all those things that thesauruses include.
Cool. Yeah.
And then we can kind of unpack it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So we don't actually sort knowledge into subject areas because doing so discourages learners from interdisciplinary thinking and exploring innovative applications that they might invent. Super huge, right? Everybody's talking about that always we have to have innovators. That's really important. So learning isn't about amassing data. It's about making connections, deepening understanding, solving problems, creating and sharing all of the things that we have just solved and created. Facilitators support students in exploring the relatedness and the convergence of the learning domains. So everything is coming in and we are here to put all that together and really check on how it's related. And we do this both in school and in the world around us. Sorting or prioritizing traditional subjects is rarely useful in this perspective. So there's no need for any kind of a hierarchy of information when the point of the information is the living of the life, right? So it's really important to be able to have your food and cook your meal, and you're going to get your math in that. But that's not because you're not driven to multiply your recipe by 4 because you want to learn math. You're driven to multiply each one of those ingredients because you have your friends there. And so it's that relatedness and interconnected weaving together that is really our focus. So we would not in any way prioritize one subject over another at all.
Once again, no. Okay, as the representative naysayer of all of this, I've said it once, I've said it, I'll say it again. I remain split, deep passion for all of this. I feel like it's inevitable and good for our world, but yet I've got my human roots here. So you'll find that I go in and out of allowing myself to accept the newness of these practices and tools. Well, the tools are undeniable, but we'll get to that on another day. Yeah. Okay. So let me represent the parent out there who's like, no, you can't do there's not even pathways for it. It's education, learning, living. We go to school and we have subjects. There's no way, there's nothing else really. And so, yeah, I'm feeling like there's nothing else. So how can you say that this works? Really? Really?
Yeah. So, you can dig back into historical figures who didn't necessarily go to a traditional school, right? School and subjects has only been the last 100 years. So coming up maybe 120, right? It's pretty young. And pretty much everybody survived. Like everybody got their information that they needed to know. Maybe they weren't literate, but they certainly lived very happy, successful lives based on what the needs of their society was right then, right? So they were literate in the pieces of the community that they needed to have. Right now, our community, our culture is a literate culture. The entire planet pretty much is all literate. And so that's a piece of our culture. Just like during the, you know, during one period of time, saddling a horse was a piece of like cultural literacy. At one time, being able to shoot an arrow was a piece of cultural literacy, right? So everybody had that piece. So in playing in the culture, in being in your culture, you are always going to pick up the pieces of your culture that constitute right here and right now. This is the culture I'm in, and this is what we need to be literate in. So for instance, being able to open a web browser, like you are not literate if you can't do that. And you know, to be honest, how many older people do we look at and we just roll our eyes and we're like, oh gosh, okay, well, you know, it's too late for you. You're never going to figure out how to open this browser. I'll just try to walk you through it. And I'm going to have to come over to your house and like be with you. And it's going to be our relationship that's deepening because you don't know how to open your browser. And so we're just going to kind of hold your hand and guide you through this. And you're just not ever going to have this literacy, right? They can read fine. Does reading help them to open their browser? Not at all.
Okay.
Because they haven't picked up on that piece of new literacy in the culture. And so now they are illiterate for something that is going on for them, right?
Okay.
So that's the prioritizing of subjects. They hit the mark. They learned to read, which was a piece of the culture when they were growing up, right? You absolutely had to know how to read. They can go to a library if they want. They can look through the Dewey Decimal System and figure out how to access this information, right? But how far behind are they to the 7-year-old's grandson that comes in and just picks up his phone and is like, hey Siri, what is this? Really far behind. So it's new, it doesn't look familiar, but literacy looks very different. And it's like a cultural literacy that everybody just picks up. So there's no need to worry about like, how are we going to get these things to happen? What are we going to do? How can we force this human to know the things that they need to know? And to be honest, nobody needs to force anybody to walk behind you and get the food that they need. They just do it. And right, like it's just gonna happen. So yeah, so saying like, well, we have to force these kids to learn all these subjects is, I mean, if you allow them to do it a different way, it looks different because you're not forcing them to be along your timeline, but they learn it. Everything that we need to know, they will learn. Your tiny little toddler takes your phone and is deleting your contacts. They're not on your puzzle app that you got, little toddler app. They get out of that. They go into like your most important, valuable information on your phone. And they're like, no, I think this is something that I need to learn how to do. Let's see if I can delete some groups.
It sounds like personal experience. That's too random to not have had happened in real life. Okay, so they get what they need. Okay, they live in a culture, they get what they need, period, the end. Feels like we could go a little further with it though, because for example, I guess the older people that you were talking about, they know how to read because they went to school.
Yes.
Right. And they have a certain frame of reference. They have a certain frame of reference for the world that we live in, the culture that we live in, from their experience in school. And so I think what's coming up right now in my mind is like, I guess that takes way too much trust than I think is available to the masses.
Yeah, it's a very trusting situation. Luckily, there are a lot of like alumni stories. If you go and start listening to the alumni life stories of people who have been allowed to learn naturally, you find out that they not only acquired all the things that they need, but they're living like hella better lives than most people because they figured out how to learn, and they also figured out like what they like to do because they had all this extra time. So
Oh,
yeah, so they got to learn things. First off, they know how to learn, right?
mm-hmm.
Which is really important and would assist the people who came up and now like you need to know how to learn how to use Siri, for instance, or how to open a web browser. Once you know how to learn, then it can take you on through no matter how old you are. You won't lose that knowledge of how to learn. So they acquire that as opposed to just learning how to read. Now they know how to figure out how to do the next thing because our cultures are shifting always, right? The world is ever shifting and faster than ever now. Like it's crazy, just new information. We have access to like the whole planet worth of information in a second. And so, yeah, you don't need, once you know, you don't really even need to know how to read, to be honest. Like you don't need to know how to read. You can go for so long just asking Siri and she listens to you and she gives you the information that you need, right?
Yeah.
So you can literally like explore the world without like, hey Siri, show me the Egyptian pyramids. She's coming on my phone right now.
Yeah.
Could you please repeat it? There you go.
Okay, touche. Okay, so okay, so subjects, and instead of subjects, tell me if I'm on your track or whatever my interpretation of it is. Like there is subject learning and then there is other learning, and it serves fine, as well as what I'm getting from this is they're learning about themselves, that they have time and space to, if they want to learn a subject, it's available. Okay, it's not even a thing. But what they're doing is they're having a chance to learn and be with themselves, internally, and not following something from outside of themselves, thereby, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of supports, subject learning may support not learning about yourself. And that's right. Like that's a huge thing here. This is not just about school. This is about being human.
Yes, and that's why we don't prioritize one subject over another, because the subject of reading is a beautiful thing, right? Like this is great. It's going to unlock all these worlds and it's wonderful. Maybe Siri will be able to read you, Alice in Wonderland, and maybe she won't. So maybe you need to be able to read Alice in Wonderland of your own accord. But is reading more important than your social, emotional development? Like, okay.
Depends on who you ask.
What's that?
It depends on who you ask, but okay, go on.
Depends on who you ask. But if you look at people's lives and take a look at the people who are emotionally literate, they qualify in the world of the world always as our current definition of successful or satisfied with what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you talk to people who are not as emotionally literate, they quite a bit more often don't fall into those categories. So it's just, it's how you want to explore the world. I personally think that I would rather have an illiterate person who is happy and satisfied than having someone who is, unsatisfied and unable to do what they want to do, but they can read. Like, reading isn't the point. The point isn't reading. The reason that we want them to read is so that they can have the things that they want, right? That's the only reason we're pursuing this, is because we're like, if you don't know how to read, then you're not going to be able to have a happy life. Well, if you're not having a happy life, but you know how to read, then it's turned upside down. Like, the point of everything is like, have a happy, satisfied, fulfilling life. So if you're learning the satisfied, happy pieces of life, like how to live life, how to be in relationship with people, all of those things, you are doing it. You've got
Oh my
it.
gosh, yeah.
You nailed
That's the education, is how to be alive on the planet, which is, to me, like above everything else.
it. Right. That's why it's so important and ingrained in us. Like, you have to learn how to read, because you won't be happy. You won't be able to fulfill your life unless you know that, right? So we turn it upside down, and we take away the things that are providing you with a happy life. Freedom, for one. Like, it's challenging if you don't feel like you're free. It's like, choosing to be happy when you don't feel like you're free is much harder. Obviously, it can be done. Obviously, it's true, you have freedom of choice at all times, but your path in order to discover that is going to be way more challenging, right? It's way harder to hold your space as Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz and be like, nope, I am choosing joy. That's harder. That's going to take a lot more mental space. Whereas instead, you could just be like, hey, I don't know why I'm happy. I'm just happy every day, because you just are free. You just have the choice to be free. You can do and say and be the things that you want to be. So, yeah, I love easy is really fun and nice for me. And so I love being able to provide that for kids.
Wow. Is it this do you think that this session of our talk would be an appropriate time to address what you just said, which is easy? Like, this is getting a little bit deeper and philosophical, but oh, he's so cute.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, with the spoon. Oh. Hi, buddy. Hello, James.
Did you get your piece? Are you satisfied? Okay.
Yes.
That was easy. Yeah, so easy. What? We have to work and suffer. Here, this isn't just, no, you can't just have an easy life. Like, you have to earn that through hard work and toil.
That's an option of a way that life can be lived. That is one option, but it's not required. Like, many people choose that option, but that's not because it's the only way. Many people also choose an easy way. Many people also just drop into life with a silver spoon, right? And they just have it easy. Like, the fact that some people live easy lives proves to me that it is possible.
Okay.
Obviously, it exists.
All right.
And if it exists, like, are there choices that we can make during our days that move us a little bit closer to that as well? And it turns out there's a ton of ways, and like, maintaining personal freedom is a huge one. Super hard for me as an adult who I was homeschooled for most of my life, but we did curriculum at home, so you had to complete all of the work, right? And it didn't feel super free, a little bit more free than the other kids, but traditional school kids had less freedom than I did, but like, I just you choose whether you're going to do that or not, right? And you get to choose in every moment. And the more that we can allow our little humans to choose and see what happens when they choose, the better. Super the better.
Oh, they don't have to wait until they're 18 to make choices. They can start now. And are we circling back on this subject thing?
Yeah. So, see, like, how do you like not being able to read? Is it working for you?
Wow.
Love it. Is this magical for you? Like, no. And as soon as their answer is no, and then they exercise their personal freedom to choose reading, oh, dang, man, they learn it so fast, so fast. And it brings back, right? It takes 400 reps to learn something.
Yeah.
If you are compelled to learn it, it takes
Mm-hmm.
10 to learn it if you choose it. And so they learn it so fast when they're ready. And then they spend all that other time before doing other things, making lemonade, who knows, all, we're making our root beer and having happy hours, just for fun, doing all sorts of things for fun.
Do you mean literally making root beer and having happy hours?
Literally making root beer.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted everybody who's listening to get that you actually do that.
Actually do that. Yes, at Free to Learn, we're meeting virtually right now. And so one of our offerings was the kids wanted to do a happy hour, but they're not of legal age to drink yet. So they have
yes, they are.
root beer.
Root beer.
So they went with root beer instead of beer.
It's so great.
They're happy.
So great.
Right. But they're doing activities. They're having a happy hour. One, they're dang happy, which is the goal of all of the stuff, right? Whether they can read or not, they are living life in freedom and in happiness, which is why we want them to learn all these things. So, yeah, really important.
It opens up so many questions for me. I'm like, but what about college? Are they going to be ready for middle school, high school? Or what if they choose to self-direct? Like, what if they end up in school? Like, we'll get to all those in eventual.
All those, and those are all like, you think of it all falls into place really easily. I'll just give like the short pat answer is all of those what ifs, when they choose it, just like when they say, I can't read, I need you to give this to me, like facilitate this right now. And they learn it really quickly. When they decide, I want to be a like traditional path veterinarian. And traditional path veterinarians have to have licensing, they have to go to college, they have to whatever, do an internship, whatever the path is, right? There's a path. And they just go from whatever self-directed path they are over here, they decide that they want to be a vet, and they just go like this, onto this traditional path, and off they go. And they just look at the list, we need to do all of these things, okay? Can we do all of these? Did we already do some of them? Yes, check, check, check. Do we have some that we need to still do and can still do? Yes, check, check, check. Are there some that we've like missed? We were just doing other things and so we missed this. Yes, these 3 things you should have done according to traditional knowledge, but you missed it. Okay, is there anything else that you did that qualifies, that meets those criteria? It's not the same, but it is the same in experience. Yes, okay, let's write out a letter, send it to the dean, say, look, I have completed this, it just doesn't look the same. And the dean looks at that and is like, okay, cool.
And that's a thing.
That's
a thing.
So often.
Can my mother's heart count on that, those types of possibilities?
If your kid wants to go to college in a traditional path, just in the same exact way as they figured out how to get homemade root beer when Amazon isn't delivering root beer, right? Like, we want to make our own root beer. What do? How do we make this happen? Turns out you can't really buy dry ice on the internet very easily, right? Like, super expensive, super hard to ship, yada, 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 yada. Mm-hmm. They figure it out. They make it happen. And when college is the next root beer, they also figure it out because they know how to figure stuff out. Nobody told them like, okay, just do all these things and then your life path will just be, it'll just open up for you. They said, hey, if you want root beer, you got to figure it out. So they know, oh, if you want to go to college, you got to figure that out. Let's do that. I'm here alongside you and I'm going to walk you through it. But
my gosh,
you got to figure it out.
So am I hearing you? So we started with the subject question. Are there certain traditional subject areas that are a priority? No, is the answer to that. And they're, instead of doing the subject coursework, checking those boxes, they're actually figuring out actual real life stuff. And that is life, and that includes their own life, their own self, their ownness.
Yeah.
Okay. So wow, I just can't argue with that. I just can't find something.
And listen, we don't have to trust that, right? Like
Ugh.
you see that work all the time. They're living their life, they're making things happen. They're like, hey, I want these new chickens. How are we gonna do it? When they're smaller, getting new chickens, like that being their path, right? Really just means like annoying the heck out of you until you bring some dang chickens home. That's all. That's all it means. Well, it turns out you can do exactly that same practice. You just annoy the heck out of that college dean about you knowing everything that is to know about chickens. Let's just keep it on chickens.
Fine.
The exact same practices that they used to and oftentimes we say about our children, like, well, they just manipulated me into getting these chickens, whatever, right? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't want chickens, but they've got to have chickens. So now we have 12 of these chickens. And now we've got raccoons
That's
coming
funny.
in and we're fixing fences and blah, 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 right? The exact same techniques that they use to get you to get those chickens at the house is the same technique that they use on the dean of students, on the dean of the school to let them into their college. Like, no, listen, chickens are the thing, right? Like, I love chickens. There's never been anything better than chickens. I eat nothing but Peeps at Easter time. Like, they're gonna do every single
Thank you.
every single thing about what the inside of them, right? You're the dean, and you read this letter, and you're like, this person only eats
Oh my
at
God.
dinner time. I gotta have this person in my student body. Like
You're
this,
just like,
they're making a contribution to the world of chickens.
okay, all right. Totally landed for me there. Okay. That is hilarious. That's so, and by the way, the parent and the dean make their own choice to allow this thing. It's like, call it manipulation if you have to, but that was their own choice to bring the chickens in or let the kid in, right? Like that's,
Yes.
the kid just had a goal and went after it, and that was it.
Yeah, right. And it looks
All
different.
right.
It looks different with a parent, right? And when they're tiny,
Yeah.
potentially. But in essence, like they've learned a very valuable skill. And then once they get the chickens, oh, the torture of like, dang it, now the chickens are running out of water, and now we have to go get them food, and it's like this huge thing. And the parents like, the chickens, these were your chickens. You need to work on, like, and they're sending them back, and like, the chickens are out of water. It's a hot day. Go feed your chickens. So they have all of that. Like they have the real life experience of, yes, you're going to beg and plead to get into this college, but then there's also going to be like the nitty gritty of making those things happen for yourself, right? Now you have the chickens and there's a bunch of care that goes into them. And so they've also practiced that. So they know when they're going to the dean and saying, hey, this is what I want, they also have that life knowledge of this is what I want, and I'm willing to put the effort in order to make that happen because I know what's involved in it. I know how this looks. I know what this journey is.
Oh, like I know that what it's like to experience getting what I want and what it took to get that. And now to keep it, I know what that's kind of like too. And oh gosh, now I need to keep this thing
Yeah.
at college. Right. And I know, the concept has already been experienced in the system. So it's there, and it's probably been experienced for however long they've been free to do life that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's not,
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
they want
Cool.
to be there because of their heart for chickens, right? So this
Mhm.
is like, no, you need to let me into this school, not because I've completed all these check boxes, just incidentally in class with a bunch of other kids. That's not why. The reason that you need to let me in here is because chickens, right? And so like everybody responds to that, like, oh wow,
Yeah.
okay, you're gonna come in and our chicken program is gonna freaking thrive because
Mhm.
you are bringing your chicken thing to it, right? Like
Yeah.
you can
Eh, eh,
come to my chicken program any day.
right. Can we try to play around with like unpacking that thing that just chickens? Like, that thing that they bring that's not what everybody else brings. It's, can we just talk about can we identify that for ourselves? Like the different thing, what is that? Can you help me with that?
Well, it's just a level of knowing and caring and being with something that is just different. It's not, I decided to be a vet because that's the least annoying thing that I could think of.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
I also like my cat, so maybe veterinarian would be okay. It's not that. It's like, when I was 4, I had chickens. I've been through all the life cycles of the chickens. I've been through all, like I've had chicken massacres. I've had to, I've raised the chickens that,
Yeah.
all the things. So it's just,
It's alive.
yeah.
It's alive. That's what I feel like, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I'm grasping for the language, but I don't think that language fits this. Right?
Yeah, it's one of those isms that just is, it's just, yeah, and you can't explain why someone has a passion for chickens. Like, nobody understands that. What
But
is
right, but the chicken college at that university is going to be changed and evolved probably, and there's going to be bars set, and somebody's going to come in there that, it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. And
okay, so if we could, sorry, go ahead. Are you sure? Okay, so let's see. So you did mention when you were going over what the publications say when the frequently asked questions at Free to Learn, you mentioned innovation and being innovative. What part of that? Oh, it says, okay, so we don't sort knowledge into subject areas, as doing so discourages learners from interdisciplinary thinking and exploring innovative applications they may invent.
yeah, so we'll just stay on the theme of chickens, unpack that.
All right.
So when you're in a class and you're learning to read, for instance, or maybe learning about science or whatever, you're in a classroom with your 28 other students and you're learning your information. You're just packaged up this little package and it's just handed to you, and you just unpack this package and take the little pieces and put them on this test sheet over here, and then you're done, right? Not
Yes.
super innovative. We're all familiar with that model. When you're working with chickens, you have finally mastered the family and acquired the chickens. And now it's like 103 degrees and it's so frustrating. Like, you got to go out there and they're running out of water and all the like day-to-day practice of keeping these chickens. Also, your cute little yellow chicks aren't cute and yellow anymore. They've like grown up, and now some of them peck you when you come in, and you're dealing with like the nitty-gritty of chickens here. And Dad comes home one day and he's like, we're going on vacation. We're gonna be gone for a week and a half. What are you gonna do with your chickens? Now you have like, it's middle of summer, chickens are gonna die, there's not enough shade already, like you let them in and out because they get attacked if they're out through the night. There's all these things, right? So you have to figure out what to do, how to make sure that they have water, how to make sure that they have shade, how to make sure that they have all the things that they need, because you're gonna be gone for a week and a half. So your brain starts hustling, trying to figure out what you're gonna do in that situation. You're not like, here, have a little box, unpack it, and rearrange everything over here. You're like, has anything like this ever happened before? Are there different watering systems? Are there relationships that we can bring into play here? Like, do we have a neighbor who could come over? Nope, all the neighbors are too old. Nobody's gonna be able to do this. Is there a relative that's close enough? Nope, everybody hates chickens. The one who could do it has a fear of chickens in particular, right? So you're like, oh my gosh, nobody can take care of these chickens. So you drive to the feed store and you're like, okay, I'm going to be gone for 10 days. How do I get this water to these chickens for 10 days? And you buy all the parts and you go out there and you hook up your little thing and you put your little bowl on the faucet, and then the water drains out of the bowl as the chickens are drinking it. And then all of a sudden when it gets down to a certain level, it sprays out, refills, and you're like, oh my gosh, the chickens are not going to die. And you figured it out. So that's one very small, typical example of innovation, figuring out like, how do we solve these problems? As opposed to just unpacking a pre-packaged box and rearranging the information on a test. So, and those kinds of things are the things that employers are looking for right now, right? Like everybody wants somebody who can like, man, we have this problem. I wish somebody knew how to think through this problem and solve it and figure it out, because it wouldn't be a problem if somebody had already unpacked it. We have to have somebody who knows how to like innovate, do things differently.
Yeah. Thank you. That works.
Does that answer the question thoroughly?
It does. So, okay, so just for fun, the idea of innovation is just like taking a problem and figuring out how to do something new and different with what we need to solve.
Yes. Yeah. And that watering story is a story from my childhood. My dad is actually a pretty big innovator, and he literally like our chickens, we never had to water our chickens because he got tired of having chickens, right? So yeah, there was literally a tiny little bowl and it had a little, you know, not a spigot, but he had some sort of little thing on there. As soon as it drained down, it would just fill right back up. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
We have those automatic things now all the time, right? For cats and dogs and our house animals. But, you know, gosh, that was like 40 years ago. So it was pretty innovative at the time.
Yeah, they didn't have, I can't imagine not having that. That's weird.
Yeah, it was just out in our yard, little chicken water.
Yeah. Wow, you had a little bit of innovative modeling going on in your childhood there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Definitely. Problem solving.
And speaking of which, I'm sure your parents were being innovative, having however many siblings you have.
Yeah, there's 8.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, right. I think we lived in a 700 square foot house right then with 7 kids. That was in our tiny little house. Yeah. So they were very innovative.
Compulsory innovation.
Very.
But they were also self-directing into homeschooling, so that's good. Okay, so I wrote down medium as the message. At some point when you were going through this, just really quick, this question about subjects, are there subject areas that are a priority? Is there anything that pings for you when I try to correlate the medium as the message? Is there anything there? There might not be.
The medium as the message, right, means that the actual doing of the thing is the is. So it's not the fact that you're going to come home to 10 dead chickens at the end of your vacation, right? It's not the end result. Whether the chickens are alive or dead at the end of the vacation isn't the point. What's the point is all of the little tiny steps that you took to move forward on your journey. Okay. This is the point. This isn't the point. This gives you the impetus to take all of these little steps, but this is where life is, right? Life is here.
Thank you.
Life,
okay.
This is life right in here. And if we're only at here all the time and we can never be in the in-between parts and value these things, value the fact that dad wasn't available to take you to the hardware store to get the parts, and so you had to call up your grandpa and go with him, right? That is the message. The message is that you got to ride in your grandpa's old truck and, you know, have no air conditioning and roll down the windows and just be in that experience. That is the message. And there's a bunch of things that happen along the way that are way more valuable than whether you come home to live or dead chickens.
Okay. Oh, wow. I'm really glad I asked that. Because in the agile world, that little phrase comes up, medium as the message, and it's taken me a while to wrap around it. I don't, yeah, it's just been taking me for a while to wrap around that, and that really makes sense. And that's a huge theme in all of this is the living
Yeah.
that's happening is the message, which could we say the message is the actual, gosh, it's so cool. The message is the learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, that circles all the way back, right? Like that is why one subject is not a priority over another subject, because you don't know in a day what you're going to need to focus on in that day. You don't know if you're going to be in a fight with your sister, or if you're going to have, you know, somebody smash their finger and you're going to be learning about blood, or if you're, you know, you just don't know. So it's important to
You just don't know. Yeah, like my daughter today, we had this talk about school and her not wanting to do it, and we had this big thing. She learned so much about herself and the state that she was in and how to handle it and what next. So when the what next part came, one of the first things that she decided to do was to ask me if we have any garlic. And then I just was like, yeah, here you go. Here's a whole bulb. And I just watched her. She's 11, right? I just didn't know what she was doing at all. And she was like, how do you get it to come apart? I was like, oh, you just kind of break the skin and they come apart into cloves. Okay, thanks, Mom. She takes it, she peels it. She's like, do we have a smasher? You could use a fork. Smashes it with a fork, puts it on a spoon, or did she put it on a spoon? I might be making that up. She put it in her mouth. She put it in their mouth after she had gotten a glass of water to hold, put it in her mouth, started chewing on it. Whoa. And I was like jumping around the kitchen. I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, I'm so impressed. What are you doing? She couldn't tell me because she had it in her mouth. So she ate it. And I was like, what the heck is this? And she's like, well, I was watching YouTube. And this amazing guy did this video on how to stay safe from the coronavirus and just general health. He's like, he said, if you do this twice a day, you'll stay healthy. You'll help yourself. Among many other ways to stay healthy and safe, you will help yourself. And so she did it. She's my 11-year-old eating raw garlic. I had nothing to do with it.
But wonderful, a daily double dose of antibiotic, antibacterial, antiviral,
fungal,
antioxidants, like everything you could ever imagine is in garlic. If you, like literally, if you did that, it's pretty antiviral.
And it's powerful, really powerful. And now she was like, it wasn't that bad. She's like, I was expecting worse. You know, I thought she'd spit it out because it's hot too for me. She was fine. She's also exploring like incorporating spicy foods, trying to build up her tolerance. But so yeah, I'm like, wow, okay, wow. She learned that because she was having fun doing what she wanted to do. It was easy. She was free to be watching the YouTube, which is like kind of taboo, like, you know, watching too much YouTube. But she's learning a lot. Like they're learning a lot, and I have actually no idea what that is. There's like a mountain of learning going on, and to me it looks like they're just sitting around on their butts all day, and it seems like it's okay. It's weird. So
saved from the coronavirus because of YouTube. Who knew?
Yep. She had the time and space because she wasn't at school this morning.
Well, and if you attempted to compel her to eat raw garlic twice a day,
Do we even need to go there? No. So, okay, well, unless you have any more fabulous, fantastic, super useful, practical, life-changing, world-changing nuggets to share today, I would say that I'm fulfilled in my probing you on this topic today. What do you say?
great. Yeah, I feel complete.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Emily. I love you to death. I can't wait until our next one. We might be talking a little bit about math and teaching reading. We talked about that in the first one, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more maybe.
Like,
So,
awesome.
okay. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic, Wednesday, and we'll see you next time.
All right. I love you.